Uh, Welcome again, everyone, to this online session on emerging challenges in cybersecurity. Myself, Dr. Rakesh Agrawal, Secretary General, Risk Management Association of India. So, just to briefly introduce our organization, Risk Management Association of India is a global body engaged in promoting education, research, and training in the field of risk management. RMAI is providing platform for professionals to interact, exchange information about latest development in the area of risk management. Last year, we launched a 30-hour online certificate course on risk management, which has been running quite successfully with very good feedback from the participants. And in this year, we plan to launch a number of more courses on credit risk management, on liquidity risk. A course on PML is going to be launched soon, a course on reinsurance, and a course on motor insurance. So this year we will be, maybe we are planning to launch around 100 courses. So you'd be getting you can get more information at our website, rmaindia.org. So just to briefly introduce the theme, during the past 1.5 years, COVID-19 crisis has brought about years of change in the way companies and all sectors and regions do business. Even companies who are reluctant to adopt technology were forced to join this technology revolution. However, as the impact of technology grows, the threats of cybercrime also increase proportionally. The business organizations should take suitable measures to analyze the possible cyber risks, data breach threats, ransomware, emerging risk exposures, and map possible solutions for perceived risk. So the impact of the cyber risk may be huge with shutdown of business and a high cost of data breach. So to discuss all these issues, we have organized this webinar to understand in detail the perceived risk and the possible solution. For today's session, we have Mr. Sagar Sanyal, an expert in the domain. I would request Shyam to our Treasurer RMAI to introduce the speaker and start the session.
Thank you, sir. Welcome all. So I would like to introduce our very learned speaker today, Mr. Sagar Sanyal. He's an insurance professional.
Mr. Agrawal.
Thank you, sir. So he's an insurance professional with 32 years of industry experience, which includes a stint of more than a decade and more than 3 decades. More than a decade with RSA's India joint venture, heading commercial underwriting of 2 regions. During his career spanning more than 3 decades as an underwriter primarily, he has dealt with major corporate from oil, renewable energy, garments, power, and various other industries. Core competencies lie in property, construction and engineering, liability and financial lines, and risk management. Currently, apart from being involved in corporate training, he is associated as Director Technical for Zoom Insurance Brokers, a leading insurance broker in India. He has been imparting insurance education for more than 25 years and is involved in taking trainings in Dubai, Bahrain, Sri Lanka, as well as various parts of India on various technical subjects. He has been speaking at various public forums in India. To his credit are several publications on various insurance and risk management topics. He is a graduate in science with a degree in management. He is also a fellow of Insurance Institute of India. On behalf of RMAI, I would like to welcome Mr. Sanyal and request him to take over the proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Agrawal. And I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir.
Is
audible.
it clear?
Yes, sir. You're
Yes, sir. Audible, sir.
Yes.
Is the screen visible to all
Yes,
of
sir.
you?
Yes, sir. Visible.
Fantastic. A very good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to this particular session on a topic which is probably being discussed at every corner nowadays, and everybody is afraid. Alongside the threat of COVID, this is something which everybody is scared of. Be it an individual, be it a corporate, we all are worried about cyber attacks. Is it really a worrisome thing? Yes, it is. Very quickly, I will give you some statistics, which is extremely startling. There are a number of research organizations who have done research, and they have projected that what is going to happen in the next 4 to 5 years. And the startling fact which has come out is by the end of 2021, we are likely to have losses. I'm not talking about insured losses. I'm talking about more from the risk management point of view. That is arising out of this cyber risk, the financial loss which is likely to impact the globe is going to the extent of $6 trillion, not billion. $6 trillion is going to be the likely loss at the end of 2021. And this is going to grow at the rate of 15% expected every year. And by the end of 2025, we are likely to have $10.5 trillion annual losses arising out of cyber attacks alone. Definitely, this is a cause of worry. And my first slide is going to show you that why it is really worrisome. This is just I would say a sort of a collage which I've created with the help of certain cyber attacks which have happened. And you will be surprised to note that all these have happened in 2021. We are just around half the year. We have completed half the year. And these are some of the risks, some of the cyber attacks which have happened during the year. Obviously, if you see that the first one has happened in our country itself, that is the Air India, our national airline, which was hacked. And what people say that, what they have disclosed is around 4.5 million passengers' data have been disclosed. And very recently, I saw an article also written by somebody that the passengers have sued also Air India. That's the latter part of it. And if you really see, I have picked up certain losses only. These are just a minor fraction of the number of cases which have happened. And no part of the world has escaped from it. Be it US, where the maximum number of cases are there in US. Even in Ireland, which is considered to be comparatively safe and there were no attacks earlier noted, and health service operators shut down their IT systems, and they were the ones who were actually doing the COVID-19 testings out there. South Korea, Taiwan, Denmark, Germany, you name any country, everybody has been affected by these cyber attacks. Now, what is this cybercrime? Very quickly, many of you will be aware of what is a cybercrime, but there are certain terms which are used. That is what I'm trying to explain to you as a layman, what these things mean to all of us. We know that cybercrime is a criminal activity. If somebody enters into our house and steals, we call them a burglar. We call them a thief. But here we have given some very sophisticated names. But what are they doing? They're doing the same thing. They're not entering our house, but they're entering our system. They're entering our computer system. And they're either stealing information, or they're destroying the data, or they're holding us at a ransom. The different terms used, the first one is the most common one. We know it as hacking. As I told you, the intruder will enter the system without the owner's permission, destroy the data, or steal the data, or ask for ransom. There are different things. Second one, phishing. And also there is another term called vishing or deep fake. These are the new terminologies which are coming up. I will be discussing a little more on phishing and vishing later on. So just to give you an idea about what it is, it's a fraudulent impersonation, mostly through email spoofing, but very recently, audio video scams are also known. I will be discussing about it when I deal right at the end about a little bit of insurance out here. So I will be discussing about this. Denial of service and DDoS, that is distributed denial of service. Both these things are related to infamous word which we are using now every day. Dr. Agarwal also mentioned this word, ransomware attacks, extortion. This is happening, I think, every day. So you will, I mean, there are a number of news which I normally tend to see. And I think not a single day goes without a mail coming from somewhere on ransomware attacks which have happened in some part of the world. Webjacking is a new terminology which are used by people in the industry. That is basically the hackers out here, they take full control of the website. You do not have any control on your own website. They take full control of the website and they carry out whatever they want. So there can be, and what can it lead to? It can lead to some very serious things like infringement of the IPR, that is the intellectual property rights. Using a corporate's website, they can put in certain information over there which are going to hurt them in the long way. Their competitors may not like it, or they can put in certain wrongful information about their own company, but actually they are not doing it. It's the hacker who is doing it. They take control of the website completely. Now the point out here is that, have we ever wondered that what could be the reasons for these attacks? Is it that the hacker can enter anywhere they want? What do we do if we want to protect our property from getting stolen? We lock our house when we are going away. We do not open to the strangers. We try to have some anti-theft devices like CCTV or maybe burglar alarms and all that. Are these particular attacks somewhat different? No, they are not. There are certain reasons of these attacks. It's not that the hacker is able to enter every system. If that was the case, it would have been a catastrophe. They do enter, and they are entering various places. I told you $6 trillion at the end of 2021. Annual loss is not a small amount. But what are the loss reasons? During the course of my session, I will take several examples. Some of the examples are there in the slides. And as I remember some other examples, I will be mentioning those, linking it with the topic which is there on the slide. Factors affecting cybercrime outbreaks. And you will be very surprised after looking into this slide that, and just try to look into your organization, look into your family members, look into yourself, that are you doing any one of these things? First one, human error. One of the largest contributors to the hacking incidents. Now there are three types. I have categorized the human beings into three types of people. One is a malified insider. Now this guy knows everything about the organization. So what he's going to do, he's going to collude with the hacker and help him to get into the system. Very dangerous. But luckily for us, the percentage of attacks happening due to a malified insider are the lowest. Next, we have a negligent insider. That person doesn't know what he's doing. He's careless. In fact, when in risk management, this is a forum of Risk Management Association. So I'm using one term where we call it as moral hazard, M-O-R-A-L-E. What do we say? Moral hazard means it's not moral hazard. He's not malified guy. He's negligent. So here also there's a negligent insider who is creating problems for his own organization. And the most dangerous are these people. The ignorant insider, they don't know what they're clicking. Suddenly they will click a mail and that's the end of his organization. Do we have it in our family? Are we doing it ourselves? Yes, we do. Unknowingly, we are clicking on many of the emails, thinking that, I think most of you are receiving emails. You have won a lottery of $100,000 or $1 million. Please, please, please do not click those. Those are dangerous. Immediately delete them. This is a very, I would say in a very individualistic manner what I'm saying, but the larger version of it can happen in an organization. And I will be touching on certain points later on also. So what happens? The hacker exposes these weaknesses of the organization. They know where the weakness lies and they expose that. I'll give an example after some time. Another threat, outsourcing. Everybody, most of the small and medium-sized enterprises nowadays outsource many of the activities. And the most common one will be the IT servicing or the managing the IT services. This BPOs, KPOs, that's what they're doing. There is a threat that outsourcing agency, the agency to whom the work has been outsourced, they may have an inferior IT security. The access, if they're allowed access to the critical sectors of the system, that means if the vendor is able to enter the outsourcing agency's system, they can enter the corporate system also. A very good example I will give as I move ahead, and you will understand is probably one of the biggest losses in the recent times, which has happened because of this. And in the earlier times also. Increases the vulnerability. Non-classification. Are we classifying our data into various categories? Critical, severely critical, moderately critical, not critical. The reason is that the critical and the sensitive information have to be encrypted, and the access for that should not be given to the others. Because if it is so, the vulnerability are exposed. And how do we understand that? Regular vulnerability studies need to be carried out. Now, I am not an IT expert. I am not a cybersecurity expert. But whatever little I know about the risk management part, I'm a pure insurer. I'm an underwriter, I'm a broker. But what we feel that all of us must understand at least 10 to 15% of these risks if we have to protect ourselves, have to protect our organization. Updating the software. One of the biggest faults many corporates enter into or do that. That is, in fact, we also receive, sometimes we get very irritated. That day, the other day, I think it was my father who was getting very irritated. Look into in his computer, they say it is getting updated. Windows is getting updated. He was saying, what rubbish is this? I say, please don't stop it. Let it do its work. So the updating of the softwares, these instructions come from the manufacturer itself. That is the provider of the software, that these softwares need to be updated. We should not be stopping it, because these are known as the patching. The software gets the updated patches. And if we don't do it, we are opening up a vulnerable sector to the hackers. If we are ignoring the warnings, if we are not doing the patching periodically, we are exposing the vulnerability, exposing the system to the hackers. Weak IT infrastructure. This is one reason that going forward, somewhere I was reading in India, I think about 40 lakhs or so of more organizations in the SME sector, they are doing online transactions. But are they having a sound IT infrastructure? This is a cause of worry. Because if you are doing online transactions and if the infrastructure is not strong enough, what we are doing, we are exposing it once again to the hackers. So now these are the various factors. So whatever loss you see, which if you are doing a detailed study of the various cyber attacks which are happening or which has happened, you will find that they will fall under any of these sectors, any of these categorizations for sure. Some of the examples I will be giving it to you. In fact, one of the very good examples of this outsourcing being the cause, the loss has happened very recently. I think it has happened 1 or 2 months back. Morgan Stanley, you're all aware of Morgan Stanley. The Morgan Stanley Bank, they suffered a very big cyber attack loss. And how did it happen? They had got a vendor known as Guidehouse. And the Guidehouse had a vulnerable sector. They had a sector in the system which was very, very vulnerable. They had got a warning for an updating or the patching, which they did it. They did it in 5 to 7 days, but by that time the hacker had entered and planted the malware. And through Guidehouse, they entered into Morgan Stanley system and caused considerable damages. The damages are not yet known. I am not aware of the exact quantum of loss, but it is going to be a big loss because since it's a bank. Let's look into one infamous incident. In fact, whoever has attended my sessions earlier, this is one of my favorite slides. I don't remove it. I keep it. Year after year, I'm keeping this because it's a learning for all of us. This is a departmental store called the Target departmental store, which is there in Europe and US. I mean, at least the two continents they have. This is a case of outsourcing blunder. This is a case of outsourcing blunder that during this period of 2013, 27 November to 15 December, the Target was hacked. And as a result, just see the numbers, 40 million customers across the 40 million customers across the globe had their credit cards and the debit cards being affected. And additional 70 million records of personal information were stolen. So 110 million. 110 million will be possibly maybe 50% of Europe's population, I don't know, or maybe even more than that. So they were affected. Reason why this loss happened, that we need to look into it. Initial breach did not happen inside Target. This is the most important part. Initial breach did not happen inside the Target. Where did it start from? They had got a air conditioning, air hunting vendor named as Fazio Mechanical System. It's a third-party vendor who had been given the access to certain sectors of Target's system. The hackers, they knew the vulnerable sector. Due to the poor segmentation of the Target's network system, the hackers easily gained access to Target's network through the Fazio Mechanical System system. They entered and planted a malware called the Black POS, and immediately they encrypted the data, and as a result, the memory of the POS system was affected, and all the credit and the debit cards of the customers who were visiting the store, they were being compromised. You can see the amount of GB data, 11 GB data were stolen and put in the black market forums. Can you imagine the amount of quantum of loss Target had faced? Till 2017, I think May 2017, that's after 4 years, almost 4 years after the incident happened, the quantum of loss which was recorded by Target was $300 million. $300 million. Did they have insurance? Yes, they had insurance. But the insurance cover was only for $90 million. So the balance amount fell on Target itself. And you can imagine what would have been the state. Of course, they have recovered. The stores are running. They have recovered fully well. But was it a preventable one? Yes, probably it was a preventable one if they had taken precaution, if they had adhered to the warnings, if they had taken precaution of not allowing the outsourced agents to enter into the system, to access the business sector of the system. If they had not done that, I mean, probably the losses may not have happened. Next comes Equifax data breach. Once again, you will see it will fall under some of the categories what I mentioned earlier. Now, Equifax is a credit rating agency. They do the credit rating of the individuals and the corporates. A very, very big company present across the globe. Now, they reported a security breach in May 2017. Here, the hackers, they attacked a particular vulnerable area, that is this Apache Struts web application software. That is where they're using a wrong software. Not at all. This is a very, very good software. And you will see in the slide what the CEO of that software company mentioned later on. But before that, 150 million people's personal data, including maybe certain financial informations also, were compromised, leaked into many were leaked into the dark web, and there were losses. Now, why did the breach happen? As per the Apache Software Foundation, the vulnerability was known to Apache and they had told Equifax in the month of March. When did this breach happen? It happened in May. Equifax was advised to update the software through uploading of patches. That is, they said that there is a problem. The vulnerability is there. Please look into the vulnerability and just update the software. Equifax did not do that. वो होता है ना कि आज करेंगे कल करेंगे. That's what happened out here. They said, okay, we'll do it. What's the hurry? But the hacker was in a hurry. So within those 2 months, the systems were hacked. And this is what the vice president of Apache wrote. Very, very nice. I really like this statement. Most breaches we become aware of are caused by failure to update software components that are known to be vulnerable for months or even years. That is why whenever we get an instruction for updating the software, we should do it. Be it an organization, be it an individual. This is our duty. Now, what was the result? Total cost of breach. You'll be scared looking into it. Any organization in India, they'll be scared because they don't even go to probably 1% of that in insured value. $1.4 billion, $1,400 million plus the legal fees. That was the anticipated loss which Equifax will face. And this was after 2 years, 2019. Probably it has gone up also. I don't know. What were the types of losses? Just to give you an indication, government and regulatory investigation costs, fines and penalties. By that time, GDPR had come in. So UK had imposed $651,000. Legal fees, huge number of customer legal suits expected. 150 million people were affected across countries, UK, US, Canada. Incident response cost. Did they have an insurance cover? Yes, they had a very good insurance cover of $125 million. Just convert it into Indian rupees and go to any organization, because I am a broker, I know. Just convert it into Indian rupees and go to any Indian corporate and ask them to take insurance for that. They will jump. They say, sorry, we are not exposed to that much of threat. But my friends, the things are changing very, very fast. India is not an exception. India is also getting affected. There's a data which says that around, I think in 2020, 1.4 million incidents happened. Incidents, not any monetary value. 1.4 million cases, cyber attacks were reported in India. So we are not in a safe haven that we say that we don't want insurance. These Equifax had $125 million with a deductible of $7.5 million. So you can imagine how much was it? Just about less than 10% of what cost they faced. So 90% fell upon them. So which category will it fall under? This will fall under the non-adherence to the instructions given for the updating of the software. It was there in one of the categories. Now let's come to human error. Very close to our country, Bangladesh. One of the biggest IT security breach which has in a bank happened over there. 5th February 2016. It's Bangladesh Central Bank, BCB. They suffered this loss. They had a SWIFT system and the credentials were stolen out there. How did it happen? The hackers, pretending to be representatives of Bangladesh Central Bank, sent instructions to US Federal Bank over SWIFT to transfer funds to some accounts in Philippines and Sri Lanka. Now the point was that See, normally Federal Bank will receive instructions from Bangladesh Central Bank for sending in, transferring the funds. So they did not have much doubt. The hackers pretended to be, but to do that, they have to enter into the system. So how did they enter into the system? Nobody knew. Was it a malified insider? Was it a negligent insider? Or was it a ignorant insider? There has to be one of the three who helped them do this job. The BCB's printer were also disabled. That is Bangladesh Central Bank. So when Federal Bank, they sent across the notification of the transaction that such a transfer of fund on your request is being done, that did not reach the bank at all. This would have been probably one of the biggest cyber losses ever seen. $851 million, but it was lucky. The BCB were lucky that the loss was restricted to only $81 million transferred to Philippines. The balance could be saved because there was a spelling mistake, which they did. So as a result of that, Federal Bank got an alert that there appears to be something wrong. So if the hackers had not done that, this entire $851 million would have gone. Human errors. This is what, there were 3 human errors at 3 places. Bank in Philippines allowed the hackers to open fake accounts. Nothing related to cyber attack, but it was a mistake. Installation of the SWIFT system did not follow the guidelines. As a result, they were a vulnerable sector and the hackers were able to enter. The Federal Bank did not spot the fraudulent orders till the time they noted the spelling mistake. So pure human error which led to these losses. Now, all these 3 incidents, due to the paucity of time, I've kept only 3 incidents out there, and there will be 1 or 2 more which I will speak as I move ahead. But the fact is that each of these 3 fall under certain category which contribute, which are the factors leading to the losses. So you can see that any loss which happens has to happen due to something of those, either of those categories. This is just some statistics I will run through fast. Ponemon Institute and IBM, they take out a report every year they do a sampling study. And in 2020, they did a sampling study of 524 companies from 17 countries who have suffered losses, cyber data breach losses, but up to 100,000 compromised data. That is not the mega breaches. And they take out a report for that, which is very, very useful. Just some data, I will not spend much time. What it said that the average total cost of data breach among all the countries, average cost, there could be the highest, could be much more, was $3.86 million. Why I'm mentioning this sometimes gives an indication to any corporate that how much should I insure it for. This is an average cost. The highest cost could be anything. So anybody can expect a loss of $3.86 million due to the normal, if you are handling data up to 100,000, not more than 1 lakh data. 1 lakh data means that is a customer data or any other things. Basically, they're talking about more from the cyber liability point of view. Average cost per record was about $150. In India, it is much less. I think it is $72. This is the worrying part. What they found out that the average time to identify and contain the breach, 280 days. That's a huge time, because as longer the time it takes to identify and contain the breach, more will be the loss. In India, if I remember correctly, it was 313 days. That's what they had identified. So we in India should be worried, because the organizations in India reported the second highest average number of breached records. Number of records, that is number of data breached. Cost was not that high, but this is a worrying feature. Luckily, the average total cost of data breach per document is about $2 million, which is 4th from the lowest. So they need not worry much. Brazil is the lowest, but We are fourth from the bottom. So there it is a consoling feature, but this is changing. This is changing very, very fast. And of course, the cost per record is also less. But when it came to the mega breach, that is more than 50 million records, you just see the average cost. It's 350 million, which is very close to what Target faced, $300 million. This was in 2018, which has now increased to 392 million. So these data, why I included this in today's session is just an indication to you that how serious the matter is and why the organization should take proper control in their hands. This is what happened in India, 1.16 billion cases of cyber attacks in 2020. Up 3 times from 2019 and 20 times up from 2016. So within 4 years, 20 times increase has happened in the number of cases. Do we have a act? We have a Personal Data Protection Act has been lying in the Indian Parliament since 2019. This has been prepared with a lot of thoughts. But whatever could be the reason, it has not been approved till now. GDPR, the Global Data Protection Act in Europe, got approved and implemented few years back, which puts in a penalty of 4% of the global turnover of the company, subject to minimum of $20 million. Now, it is a worrying feature for all the corporates. So what happens? They take adequate precaution. It's not that they will not be hacked, but once you're taking certain risk management steps, possibly you would be in a better position as compared to what could happen elsewhere. Now, I'm coming to a little bit of risk management. I call these pillars of cybersecurity risk management. First one, every organization, whether it is a SME or whether it is a MSME or whether it is a large organization, they must have a network security in the form of firewalls. Smallest of the organizations should have a firewall. They must keep a backup of critical systems and the data. You know, these are the questions which are asked by insurers also while assessing the risk and while giving a quote. If this information are not available, it is very difficult to give a quote. I will come to the current scenario of insurance in India right at the end. Identity and access, the password management, multi-level authentication. These are very, very important. Anti-malware tools so that we are able to at least try to stop the ransomware attacks. Patch management, I've spoken a lot about patch management, and you have seen the cases also. Incident response team. The incident response team and the IT security consulting, that is very, very important. What is an incident response team? This team should be ready that if a cyber attack happens, immediately they need to take an action. The longer the time the incident response team takes, the cost, the restoration of the data and the processes involved in restoring it back starts late, and more the losses keep mounting. Many people that don't have an incident response team, they prepare the team after the incident has happened. That's not a right practice. They must have an incident response team ready. It's more of a disaster management team. And moment the event happens, they should take action. A very interesting thing I thought of telling you earlier, I just forgot about it, that I have put so much of stress on patch management, and I told you that how Equifax faced a loss since they did not update the system going by the patch which came. There's a flip side of it which has been seen. I don't know, many of you must have heard about SolarWinds. SolarWinds is a IT security, IT software company located I think in US somewhere. Now, SolarWinds suffered a huge cyber attack. I would say a few months back. Maybe I think it happened somewhere in. I mean, it was notified, or it was. They were able to know about this probably somewhere in May 2021 or somewhere. No, sorry, March. May, yeah, at the end of December 2020. Now, what had happened? Why I'm very much interested in this SolarWinds? Now, SolarWinds were providing software to various companies across the world. In fact, they have one of the data which showed their CEO said that they provide this type of service to 33,000 companies across the globe, all the 5 continents probably. Now, what happened in this case? Here, there was the SolarWinds. They used to send regular updates. They were sending regular updates to their various all these 33,000 companies, including the key government agencies and Pentagon also in US. They were high profile clients. All the Fortune 500 clients were there. The funny thing was that mid-December 2020, sorry, not mid-December 2020. I think it was March 2020, somewhere near that time, the hackers had gained control into their system. And what they did, they planted a malware over there and just kept quiet. Now, when this SolarWinds, they sent across the various updates to the 33,000 companies whom they were serving. Along with the update, this particular malware code also went because they were not aware of it. Their cyber security was not up to the mark, which has come for a lot of criticisms, and even I think Pentagon is also worried. Washington is also worried about it. There was some flaw, and along with the updates, can you imagine that malware code also went to the 33,000 people? Out of those 33,000, 18,000, round about 18,000, they did the updation. This is the flip side of it. One side I'm saying that yes, you need to do the regular updating. The 18,000, they did the updating, and as a result, what happened? That malware code entered into their system, and it was used for spying. This SolarWinds attack has been considered to be a nation-sponsored attack. I won't name in this forum the country or whatever it is. Like, you can go through the website and read. It's there everywhere. So it is a nation-sponsored. So what they were trying to do through this malware, they were trying to spy into many of the government agencies of US. It was so serious. So SolarWinds now has been called or termed as a cyber catastrophe for everybody. And the insurance companies are expecting losses up to $90 million. Why it is so less? The reason is that the government agencies, they don't take insurance cover. So otherwise, you can imagine how much this $90 million would have reached. Now, this is just a flip side of updating the software. Here, they did the update, and that's why they've suffered the loss. If they're not updated, they would not have. But that's not the solution. We need to update it. Here, the flaw was with the cyber security system of SolarWinds. There was a defect. They were surprised. And you can imagine who found that out. It was a private cybersecurity company called FireEye. I think it is FireEye only. They found it out that there was a problem because their system was hacked. Otherwise, the SolarWinds, the cybersecurity firm which was involved, they couldn't find out this problem. So the longer the time it takes, larger is the loss. So wherever it has, I mean, this is a study once again from Ponemon that whenever the study is more than 200 days, the cost of breach went up by 37%. This is a fact. This is what I personally feel. And in India, the threat is much more. Small and medium-sized organizations which do not take these adequate security measures are targets of ransomware. Do they have insurance? I can straight away say no. In India, maybe now it has picked up definitely in the last few months, but prior to that, maybe in 2020 or 2019, not more than 1,000 insurance policies, cyber insurance policies were sold. And who were those? The big banks, the big financial institutes, people like PwC and BDOs and the other companies, some big manufacturing units, big IT giants. These were the people who were taking it. Pharma companies. I don't know how many insurance companies have got their policy. I have my serious doubts. The TPS, it was mandated that the TPS should be taking policies, and they were taking. So the small and the medium sized, they do not take the policy. Now, this is something which I thought of including it, that has pandemic affected cyber liability, cyber attacks? Yes, it has. It has affected to a great extent, and work from home definitely has increased the risk exposures. How they have increased? Let's say the use of the devices for the personal as well as official purpose. Now, when I am sitting out here in my laptop, I'm taking a webinar, and at the same time, I'm working for my company also. So that's a problem. If I'm taking a client presentation through my Wi-Fi, I'm exposing certain parts of my company's networks also to the vagaries of this particular thing. Lack of adequate authentications for the network connections. But now, when you are sitting far away, the authentications are going to be lacking. It will be less. Sharing or storing of sensitive information in unsanctioned cloud applications. Possible. We are doing it. Many people are doing it. Less or unsecured gateways to applications hosted in clouds and data centers. People are with that. Most important, ignorance of the users about the potential threats. These are the ignorant insiders sitting as an outsider. This is the most dangerous part. They are ignorant insiders, but they're sitting somewhere else, sitting outside the office. So it is multiplied. The problem has been multiplied. What to do? What are the solutions? Maybe this is what has come to my mind. You will have the IT experts also explaining on this, but I personally feel that these are the points, 6 points, which if we implement will reduce the threats from pandemic situation to a great extent. First of all, training. Training has to be given to all the employees on the awareness, cybersecurity awareness, that what is phishing, what is a fraudulent website, what is phishing. So I try to do that in form of these type of webinars to various people. Cybersecurity alerts and audit logs. That is, if you are getting an alert, act on that. Multi-factor authentications has to be there. It should not be left all alone. Regular software updates. That is, it's not that you are sitting at home and if the update is coming and your IT guy is not informing you. That is the biggest of the mistakes, blunders, I would say. If our advices come to update the software, the same needs to be sent to the different houses where the working is happening. Security protection, the firewall, the malware the malware should not be allowed to enter the system. And highly secured IT environment should be there. There should be certain guidelines for working in various places. If you are working in your house, there are certain things which you need to ensure. So if this, in broad categories, if this 5 or 6 as a layman, what I could understand, if this can be done, the IT experts will give you much more. If these few things are done, then at least we'll be able to avoid losses from work from home environment. Now I come to a very different type of thing, ransomware attacks, which are becoming very, very common nowadays. And the number of ransomware attacks which are happening now, they're much, much more than what it was happening a year or two back. So the average ransom payment, I've got a data for that, which I'm just reading out. The average ransom payment made by a business to restore data after cyber attack was $220,000 in Q1 2021. So on an average, they were asking for $220,000. Obviously, they're asking in Bitcoins. Now let us see. This is a very interesting case. Many of you must have heard about Colonial Pipeline. They are the largest fuel suppliers there's in US, fuel network. They got hacked. And I think if I remember correctly, for 5 to 6 days, the flow of the fuel stopped, or maybe 3 to 4 days, not 5 days, something of that. Can you imagine 3 to 4 days, no fuel in the petrol pump? What is going to happen? The entire country came to a standstill. So the hackers were very good. They didn't ask for a huge ransom. Considering the status of Colonial Pipeline and the impact which it will have in the entire country, they demanded very less. They just demanded $5 million. That pay us this amount, we will de-encrypt the system and you will be able to use it and your fuel supply will start. The Bloomberg News reported that $5 million were paid by Colonial Pipeline to the hackers. But subsequently, one news came up also that they have recovered it also. I don't know how they recovered. There was a news that they had recovered the ransom which was paid to the hackers. May not be full, but some part of it they had recovered. So whoever were the insurers must have been very happy. But this is one ransomware attack which has happened very recently. There are a number of ransomware attacks and few of them I'm just telling you. Colonial Pipeline happened in May. In the month of March, one insurance company got hacked, CNA Financial Corporation. And the ransom demanded was $40 million. And what I understand that considerable amount of data was leaked because of this ransomware attacks on CNA Financial Corporation, once again in US. Whether they paid the ransom or not very clear till late. One meat processor, they were processing the beef in US called JBS. They were hacked. Ransom was asked for 11 million. They paid. They paid immediately. They didn't want to stop their supply. Otherwise, the business interruption loss would have been much more. Then there is one very interesting ransomware attack, which I will be speaking later on. That is probably one of the most interesting topics in today's session. I'll come later on. Now, there's a new term which has come, double extortion. Now, what the ransomware attack, what they mean by double extortion? There are two words which are used: de-encrypt and disable. And the second one, what they use is leak and shame. So what they do, they not only will stop your system, they will not only stop your system from working. As a result, there's going to be a business interruption loss. And after that, if you are delaying the payment of the ransom, they are going to leak the data into darknet and sell those. So this is what happened in this particular company in 2019. Maze is a ransomware attack. It was named as Maze attack. Small amount as compared to what they ask nowadays, 300 Bitcoins, that is 2.3 million at that point of time. When the amount was not paid, the hackers threatened to misuse the sensitive information. So there were two parts of the attack. First, they had stopped their operation, business interruption. The second was that you are not paying, okay, I will leak it. And as a proof, 10% of the data was leaked into the system. So this is a term used as double extortion nowadays. Now, what do these hackers do very quickly? It's a form of a malware which works by encrypting. So they will encrypt the data. They will not de-encrypt the data till the time you pay the money. And they will claim a ransom. I think we are all aware of the PTR, not PTR, this thing, ransomware which had affected India to some extent some years back. So it causes denial of access to the system. What is the impact? Losing access to the critical files, which can include photographs, emails, database, everything. Considerable impact on company's reputation and revenue, since it is going to be closed for some days and there's going to be a business interruption, loss for them, loss of customers also. There will be a ransom payment. And if you don't pay the ransom, as you have seen in that case of the security staffing company, it was released in the darknet and it was sold. Now, as I move forward, one thing I just want to tell you guys that why hacking happens. What are they getting out of it? So if they are doing the hacking, the prime reason is getting money. So earlier, what they used to do, they will steal the data, sell it in darknet. Darknet is a place where all those criminal activities take place and all the transactions take place, the criminal transactions. So they used to put the data into darknet, sell it off, and make money. Later on, they realized that rather than that, why don't we start ransomware? That we put our ransomware malware into the system, block the system, make it a distributed denial of service, and ask for a ransom. So this is the second way of making money. And the third one, which has come off late, which you saw in SolarWinds also, it's a state-sponsored state-sponsored cyber attack, which could be ransomware attack, or it could be simply to gather information. This you see in all those movies which we see in Netflix and the other places, that they will be stealing the data. They will be spying on the particular country's network. And this particular thing started happening much more after the COVID outbreak, because there were many countries who were doing research on the vaccine. So people wanted to steal that information. So they were doing this spying. I have started a term saying that it is a spyware, that you are actually spying and trying to get information. Who pays to them? I don't know. But the first two are for the monetary benefits, third is for spying. So these are the three reasons why these cyber attacks are happening. Can we do something for ransomware attacks? Once again, some layman's protection tips out here. But of course, these I have stolen from National Institute of Standards and Technologies advice. I thought those were the ones which I should let you know, because many people may not be knowing, may not have read the National Institute of Standards advices. Very similar, all systems to be kept fully patched with security updates. Don't let them know about the vulnerability. Only secure products or services should be used, and that can block access to the ransomware. Configure the operating systems or use third-party softwares only, the authorized application. Restricting or prohibiting personal devices, because that is unprotected and that is where the things are going to enter. So these are some of the things which I thought I will tell you. Develop and implement an incident recovery plan, which is, I told incident response earlier also. Test the data, keep backup, have a business continuity plan, and have all the key contacts available with you whom you can immediately approach once such a thing has happened. One is in US, they immediately approach FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation. They immediately notify them, because if there are chances of recovering the ransom, which allegedly has actually happened in case of Colonial Pipeline. That's what some news were saying, that they were able to recover. Now let's come to, so a lot of risk management now, because since it's an RMII sponsored thing, so I concentrated more on risk management this time. But now I'm coming back to my area a little bit more, a little bit on what are the financial impacts and what are the new financial impacts, challenges which are coming up. Let's look into it. What happens after a cyber attack? There are two categories: discovery and immediate response, and after discovering the breach. Once the cyber attack happens, the first part of it is called the technical investigation. And what are the part of technical investigation? We also call it as a forensic investigation. So whenever a cyber attack has happened, the company, the corporate has to engage an external agency to look into the root cause. It could be any big, even PwC and all the other big fives. They are capable of doing it. KPMG and everybody. So they can, and there could be various other organizations who determine the root cause. It is very important to determine the root cause. And the fees paid to these forensic agencies are not less. They're pretty big. Then you find out the probable victims of the data breach if third party has been affected. You name it Equifax, or you name it your the Bangladesh Bank, or you name the Target, or you name the SolarWinds. In all these cases, there are third party who have been affected. So identify the probable victims. Notify them. You have to notify them that yes, we are sorry to say that your data have been leaked. Now, Air India have already, they claim that they have done that. And that 45,000 people's data have been, sorry, no, I think it is not 45,000, it's much more than that. Or I think it's more than that, 45,000, that they have been leaked. So they have approached those 45,000 odd people. Now, how will you do it? Air India's job is not approaching those people. So maybe you will have to set up a call center. You'll have to set up an incident response team. You have to reach to the victims and regulators, and also the regulators. You have to inform the regulators with the disclosures and the notices. Now what happens? Immediately you inform 40,000 people. They are nervous that what is going to happen, whether my credit card details are there with them, with the hackers. Now, in this case, whoever has traveled with Air India, I can tell you that what they have said, that that what do you call that, CVV number or whatever it is, CVV number at the back of your credit card, those were not there in the system. But the credit card details could be there with the hacker. Now they will get nervous. And at the same time, they will be filing suit on that particular organization that because of you, I might lose money. So there's a credit monitoring which needs to be done. That what is going wrong? The banks have to be informed. The cards have to be replaced. Credit monitoring has to be done. And for credit monitoring, there will be probably appointing a very good agency for that. There are agencies who carry out this credit monitoring. So they will be appointing those guys. And they will also appoint some public relation guys to protect the reputation of the company. So the counseling, the credit monitoring, the PR communications, all these will be done by a separate agencies, and you have to pay to them. As simple as that. They will not do a free service. So these are all costs. These are all financial impacts. Now, after the discovery of the breach, what happens? Huge amount of legal and regulatory costs. Now, Equifax, as well as in Target, since they were in US, each of the states, they started carrying out their own investigations. Now, imagine if 20 or 30 states of US have been affected, each one of them are carrying out an investigation, all the investigation fees and the investigation expenses will be paid by that corporate who has been hacked. Then there is going to be legal services for defending the customer cases. There could be regulatory fines and penalties. UK regulatory put across a $650,000 fees on Equifax. GDPR has come now, so GDPR fines are going to be much more. Tomorrow, if our Personal Data Protection Act gets approved in Parliament, which should be, there's going to be a big fine, which will be mentioned. What I understand, that it has not been disclosed, but what I understand, that the personal data protection, the provisions are as severe as that in GDPR. Now comes the most important critical thing for all manufacturing units, mostly manufacturing units, business interruption. See, the manufacturing units, they don't face that much of threat from third-party liability because they don't have that much of data, which a financial institution, insurance company, health companies, or TPA, or the IT companies, or the payment gateways, they have a lot of data. So there the threat of third-party liability is much more. Here the threat is of business interruption. Here the threat is of cyber extortion, that is ransomware, that they will stop the system. And each of these companies, whether it is Colonial Pipeline or whether it is any other manufacturing unit or that meat processor, the JBS. In fact, there is one more case which has happened in UAE. I'm forgetting the name of that company. They also had a ransomware thing. They would like to pay the ransom rather than stopping the system for 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Unless and until you have got a fantastic incident response team, fantastic in-house IT team, which can immediately restore back the system. That is, they can score over what the hacker has done. The hacker has stopped the system. They immediately, within a day or so, they repair back the system. If that is so, they will not pay the ransom in that case. But how many people have it? So these are the main financial impacts. But what I have not mentioned, I've mentioned in blackout here, is cyber liability. I've talked about the legal cost, but what about that cost which the awards which are given by the court of law, compensations to the various people? It's huge. So whenever we have got an IT company or a BPO, KPO, or a health company or an insurance company or any financial institutions for that matter, or any payment gateway, they need to be extremely careful that when they're maintaining the data of so many customers, they can face huge amount of cyber liability claims. And that is actually, that's what took the took the losses of Equifax to 1,400 million. It's mainly because of the various customers who got awards from the courts. Global cyber insurance market, how does it look like? 2020, $7 billion US premium was underwritten. Not India, this is global. 75% of this was in North America. Balance shared between Europe, Asia, Middle East, and other places. But the other people, the numbers are going up in leaps and bounds. In India itself, we are seeing a lot of requests coming up. This is expected to reach $20.6 billion US by 2025. Big increase. 33.5% growth was there in 2020 over the previous year, and we are expecting another 27.3% growth in 2021. But there are certain things which has happened. Substantial increase in premium across the globe in Q1 of 2021. In India, what we have witnessed, there were many people who were thinking of taking a cyber liability policy. And now if they're coming back to the broker and the insurance company and saying that, yes, now we are ready to take the policy, the premium which was quoted to them probably in December or November 2020, vis-a-vis the one which is going to be quoted now, is going to see at least 30 to 40% increase in the premium. I'm talking about India. Same thing has happened across the globe. Why? I have already given the answer during this session. $6 trillion of losses are expected by end of 2021. Majority of the insurance companies across the globe, they have suffered losses. Insurance brokers have suffered cyber breaches. Arthur Gallagher, Marsh, they have suffered some sort of losses, which I've understood. I read it somewhere. So the losses are increasing. As a result, the premiums are also increasing. Now let's quickly do some mapping of the insurance solution. I've told the financial impacts. Now let us see that, do we have the, now I'm talking about India, okay, that do we have the insurance solutions in India? I'm really very proud to say that, because, you know, I have read through insurance policies of other parts of the world, the cyber liability policies, and I have seen obviously the Indian companies which are selling the insurance products, I mean the cyber insurance product. I'm really proud to say that India, we have got one of the best policies wordings. Most of the covers which are available across the globe are available in India also. Of course, there are certain restrictions which are coming in, which if time permits, I will tell you. Otherwise, I will give you some guidance about it. They have got a unique dimension of a first party cover and third party cover. Now I will be using a little bit of insurance terms in a very simplified language. First party cover means direct cost to the corporate, to the insured. Third party means it's a liability part. So one is a liability part, the other is a direct cost. What are those? First category of cover comes under the data breach expenses. The data, now we are talking about the first party covers. This slide talks about the first party cover. Data breach expenses, all these things can be covered. Notification cost, you must have seen that in the previous slide. Forensic and investigation activities, whatever cost can be covered. Credit monitoring, I told you they're deputing credit monitoring agencies to look into the cases. Identity protection expenses, same thing. Cost of replacement of the cards, cost of assessment of the loss and audit services. All these things can be covered under the data breach expense. Regulatory investigation and civil fines and penalties. Yes, it can be covered, but there's a very interesting term which we use. Regulatory fines and penalties to the extent insurable by law. I've asked probably 100 people by now that what is insurable by law. I have not got an answer to that. But my discussions, what it has thrown the light that once a decision is taken by a court that yes, these regulatory fines and penalties are payable, subsequently similar losses will get. So it is a more of a condition precedent in this case, that what has been decided by the court of law accordingly. But the cover is there. Many people ask me, is GDPR payable? GDPR fines and penalties payable, that 4% of the global turnover. I say that you have to see the policy whether it is excluded. If it is not excluded, it is payable to the extent insurable by law. There is a GDPR map. I'm not having it right now. All the countries across the world, they have been divided into 3 categories. Countries which have very clearly said that GDPR fines and penalties are not payable. Countries which they have said that we are going to pay the GDPR fines and penalties for sure. Norway, Finland, I think Sweden, these 3 probably. There are countries who are sitting on the fence to the extent insurable by law, like India. Considerable people will see to it when the losses come. But losses have been paid. GDPR fines and penalties have been paid by Indian insurers in certain cases. So this is a section which is of lot of interest to many corporates. Crisis management expense will include the reputation protection, that the PR costs, counseling costs, all these things are going to fall under the crisis management expense. Then we have got the restoration of the data. That is, if you are able to restore the data, you are going to either involve people from outside or your internal people will have additional man hours, and as a result, you will have to pay to them. This is going to be reimbursed by the insurance company subject to the bills, but no physical damage to the hardware or any other property will be covered. Business interruption, most important cover for the manufacturing industries and for everybody. In fact, 37% of the cost of claims, it has been analyzed, are towards business interruption. And this is very, very similar to your fire loss of profit. Only thing we are paying the net revenues out here. Extra expense is nothing but the same increased cost of working, which we mentioned over there. Cyber extortion, what we pay the money, that is the extortion money, and we pay for the fees to the specialist. There's a specialist who is appointed. Normally it's a cybersecurity expert. In one of the recent cases, I don't remember which one, in fact, the extortionists, they have told very clearly they will prefer negotiating or discussing with a cybersecurity expert on the amount of money to be paid. Now, who pays for this money? Insurance company will pay for the specialist fees. There are cybersecurity, so that's a number of cybersecurity experts out here. Next are the data breach liability. This is the third party liability cover. All types of liability, any types of liability which can come on you. It could be a website liability. It could be outsourcing liability. It could be any damage to the third party data, infringement of IPR, anything of that matter. And of course, the legal cost in relation to that. One very important point for if there are certain corporates who are in the present out here, that if they are looking for purchasing the policy, the wordings of the policies differ from insurer to insurer and also within countries. And within India, every insurance company has got different wordings. And data breach expense might be called something else somewhere. Data breach liability may be called cyber liability in one policy. It may be covered as privacy breach liability in one. So that it is very important for the corporates and the brokers to go through in depth the definitions of the mentioned in the policy and try to link with it that what they are trying to cover. There are quite a few emerging threats and possible solutions are there. My last 3 slides are going to be on those. But before that, what is happening in India? Increasing premium rates, I told you, almost 30 to 40% increase. There are even more than that. I've seen increases going almost 10 times higher. Earlier, we were getting a rate of about 0.4 to 0.5% on the total limit of indemnity. I have myself received quotes in the range of 2 to 3% now from that 0.4 to this thing. Of course, the increases are not there everywhere, but particularly for manufacturing units, the rates have gone up. Driven by the reinsurers. It's not the insurers who have increased, it's the reinsurers who have increased. Increasing deductibles. Nothing less than 30 to 35 lakhs of rupees will be the deductible. It can go up to 75 lakhs. It can go up to 1 crore also. Restriction in cover. Certain covers are curtailed. Sublimits are being put. Earlier sublimits, most of the insurance company would have agreed to the broker on removing the sublimits. Nowadays, in some of the covers, it is becoming a bit difficult. Now, the next 3 slides, the last 3 slides of mine are going to be on emerging threats. And this is where I'm going to speak about a very, very interesting, unfortunate, and a case which teaches us a lot of things. Supply chain and ransomware. So now this is a new thing which is happening where the ransomware attacks are targeted on supply chain. Kaseya is a tech provider in US. This is a very, very latest. In fact, it is today we are setting it on 10th of July. I think all these things have happened between 4th to 7th of July. So I thought this is the right time to tell you guys about this. Kaseya is a technical provider in USA. Now, they provide a VSA software platform, which are used by various IT companies to manage their customers' IT system. Now see the fun out here. There are 3 tiers. Let's look into it. Kaseya software platform, VSA, used by these people who are called as the managed service providers. These MSPs are the managed service providers. What they are doing, they are providing IT services to the customers across the globe. So each one of them may be catering to hundreds of customers across the globe. So now the fact is that where lies the problem? The problem is that Kaseya has suffered attack, ransomware attack in July. In fact, they have come to know about it in July. Ransom demanded is $70 million. What has happened out here? Just carefully see what has happened over here. The ransomware has been planted in the Kaseya software, the VSA platform. And from there, they have, the impact is seen in all these MSPs. So what they've seen, they have entered into the Kaseya software platform. And from the Kaseya software platform, the VSA, whichever MSPs were using the VSA in their servers, not in the cloud, not through the cloud. If they were using the MSPs in their servers, these ransomwares quickly have moved to those. Now see what has happened. This is tier 1. Now there is a tier 2 impact. Customers across the globe who are being managed by these MSPs, they have been affected. How? Kaseya software platform VSA has been stopped. There's a ransomware attack. They've locked it. They've encrypted it. MSP's system has been locked. They have been encrypted. They cannot do anything. Customers across the globe, the poor guys, they cannot operate their system. And who are these guys? It could be a small dentist. It could be a small doctor's clinic. It could be a small grocery shop. In Sweden, 800 supermarkets have closed down temporarily because they cannot operate. They cannot gain access to their cash register because the cash register was being maintained by these MSPs. So what the CEO of Kaseya has said, I don't believe it fully, that 1,500 organizations across the 5 continents have been affected. What they have said that 40 MSPs have been affected and 1,500 organizations. I don't think so. The numbers will be much more. That's what my viewpoint is. And as I told you, in Sweden, they have suffered. 800 supermarkets have just closed down. They are dependent on these MSPs. Now, what is happening out here? Here, for those 800 supermarkets, the hacking has not happened in their systems. They have closed down and they are going to suffer business interruption because Kaseya software platform has been hacked, ransomware planted out there. MSP, that ransomware has moved from Kaseya software to the MSPs. It's called the jumping off point. And they've entered into MSP. MSP cannot provide service to these SME and MSMEs, and they have stopped. So there is business interruption at Kaseya, business interruption in those 40 MSPs if that data is right, and business interruption at 1,500 organizations if the number is right. In addition, there will be a ransomware payment if Kaseya agrees to pay $70 million. This can turn out to be one very, very big ransomware attack claims. Once the data starts coming, it's just about a week old. So, and why did this happen? Once again, there was something related to this outsourcing that is shifted. So exact details I'm not having at the moment, but I thought this is the right time to tell you guys about this Kaseya software. And this is a unique thing. SolarWinds was also a supply chain event, and this is also another supply chain event which has come up, a new exposure for the insurance companies to think about, to ponder upon that I am covering supermarkets, 800 supermarkets. What will happen to the supermarkets? And even the supermarket guy is going to say, what will happen, sir? Nothing is going to happen. Why should I take a cyber liability policy? But he forgets that he is dependent on somebody, and that somebody is dependent on somebody. So if that last somebody is affected, their somebody is affected and they get affected. This is more of a contingent business interruption exposure over here. Now let's look into one of my favorite topics, which is not yet there in India. This is one thing which is not there in India, but elsewhere in the world also it is developing. Physical damage to assets. Way back in 2015, a German steel plant suffered an explosion. Why? Because the hackers had taken control of the entire plant from remote, and they were able to trigger off an explosion, probably because I don't know whether they had demanded ransom or not. They triggered off an explosion, massive damage. Similar things have happened elsewhere also. And this is where the manufacturing industries are getting worried now, because their industry control system, I'm talking about India right now, the industrial control systems like SCADA, they're extremely vulnerable for the cyber attacks. And if they take control of the SCADA, that is the industrial control system, they can control the entire factory. They can trigger off a boiler explosion. They can trigger off a fire. They can trigger off anything over there. Now the point, and obviously a lot of intellectual property rights, a lot of formula, a lot of their internal things which can be very, very costly for them, that can get stolen. Now, the point out here is that, do we have a cover under property all risk or other liability policies? No, we don't have. Earlier, there used to be no exclusions for cyber risks. So people used to say there's a silent cyber risk cover available for the insureds, or there's an affirmative insurance cyber liability cover. But people realized it, and from Lloyd's, from the London market, there have been instructions that every property policy, marine policy, liability policy other than cyber liability are going to have a cyber liability exclusion. And you open any policy today other than the cyber liability, you will have a cyber liability exclusion. So we do not have a cover for such an event under property all risk. Do we have a cover under cyber liability? No, as on date, it does not have. Physical damages are an exclusion. But are we expecting such a cover? Surely, people are working on it. If I remember correctly, Arthur Gallagher was one broker, probably they had developed some sort of this physical damage cover under the cyber policies. And we will see very soon in India also the products being modified to include this, provided the premium is paid for the same. Just see this incident, very interesting. Highly sophisticated phishing attack on an exhibition firm in Dubai, resulting in very small loss, but just an example which I wanted to show before I explain what it is. A cyber criminal hacked the firm's email and then used a spoofed email to trick its client to wire the funds into overseas bank. So what the cyber criminal did, that they hacked that particular exhibition firm's email. They knew exactly what is the amount due from an X company. They sent across an invoice from an authenticated email ID of that firm, maybe the CFO. The client of the firm, they knew that $53,000, sorry, there's 194,700 AED, that is the dirham, I owe to this particular firm. So they never doubted. They never saw what was wrong in the email ID, and they paid that amount. But it was not that firm who had raised the invoice, it was the cyber criminal who had done. Now, how did they do it? They will change one alphabet. They will not change the alphabet. Suppose if it is A, that A is going to be written in a different font, or it will be written in a different style. Maybe if it is, let us say, Calibri, they will change the Calibri to Comic Sans, or it will be something related, maybe Arial, or maybe Times Roman. So that particular alphabet will be changed. So as a result, and who will observe it unless and until you are really having a telescope and microscope, or you are having a look at it, you won't realize it. And mostly it happens with the ignorant insiders or the negligent insiders. They're not aware of, or they are negligent about looking into and looking whether that A is right or not. In fact, nowadays, what I have started, that whatever mail comes to me, I keep a very close look into it, that is it the authenticated email? Because this is happening across the world. These are known as phishing. These are known as business email compromise. These are known as social engineering costs. Huge number of business interruption, we call it BEC, business email compromise cases have come. In fact, I can read you one data which I'm having. In Q2 2020, the business email average losses rose to $80,183 from $54,000 in Q1. So in one quarter itself, it changed so much. A new thing has come up called the deep fake. This, I was talking about email spoofing. Now I'm talking about something called the deep fake fraud, or which is known as the audio visual scam. In the first case, the mails are being fraudulently impersonated. Now I'm talking about the voice of a person is impersonated. And suppose you are receiving a call from your boss saying that please deposit so much of amount in this account. You will say, okay, my boss must be needing this. Send across. You are the finance guy. But it's not your boss, it's a hacker who is showing it. So all these things are happening. Two types of things can happen. Phishing mails received from an authentic source by employees of an organization, leading to voluntary parting, like a CFO or the CEO of the company sending a mail to the finance manager, saying that yes, you have to send the money to this particular account, but it's a hacker who has impersonated the CEO or the CFO, and that money will be voluntary parting of that fund, or the data will be done, and then there's a loss to the company, first party loss. Second, what happened in the case mentioned above? Phishing mails received from an authentic source by customers of an organization, and they think that it has come from the organization, they will part with the fund. What has happened in the previous case? These are the losses which are happening. The names of these are, some insurance company use the word e-communication, e-theft. There are people who are using the word phishing. The people are using the word email spoofing. They can use social engineering cost. They can call it a fraudulent impersonation. They can call it business email compromise. It comes in different names, but the end result is the same. Loss of money, loss of data. Can you cover it under a cyber liability policy? This is the latest entrant. In the last couple of years, insurance companies have started providing this cover. But of late, the number of cases have gone up so much that there's a restriction in this cover. Some companies cover either of the two. Some companies cover both the things, but they will put a small limit, maybe 5% or 10% of the total policy limit. Some persons are going to put very high deductibles for this, maybe 50 lakhs of deductible. Some policies will say, sorry, we cannot cover this anymore. So what was available even 5 months back, very easily, these covers from various insurance companies, nowadays it's becoming extremely difficult. The premium is increasing because of these. The deductibles are increasing. The restriction of covers are happening. But the cover is available. Wordings are available in India for this. And this is a cover which is overlapping between cyber liability as well as commercial crime policy. There's a policy called commercial crime, which also covers such fraudulent impersonations. Final slide. Just see what happens out here. Very similar to what happened in Kaseya, but a little different. IT security breach in an outsourcing agency like BPO, salary processing units. Impact business interruption of the corporate who is the proposer for cyber. So no loss, no hacking in the insurance companies insured who has proposed for the cyber insurance. Breach has happened with the outsourcing agency, but the impact is felt out here in the form of business interruption. Second one, negligent act of cloud provider, outsource system disruption, impact on this organization. Now, this is known as contingent business interruption, very similar to what has happened in case of Kaseya, but this is a little different. This is known as contingent business interruption, disruption in the supply chain. Whether it is covered, rarely. I won't say no, can be obtained after answering a lot of questions, after getting a lot of data, a lot of information from the insurance companies. We will be able, it is possible to give this, a lot of information from the proposer. Insurance companies can design this cover, not everybody, but somebody can do it for a small sublimit, not for a full limit. So friends, this is what I had today. Sorry, I have exceeded the time by a few minutes. Quite a few minutes, I would say. Extremely sorry for that. My apologies, because sometimes I get carried away when cyber liability sessions are there. So I will be stopping the presentation now, and will be very happy to answer any question which will be there in your mind.
No, in fact, this was a very interesting session, and you explained with such good number of live case studies. So it was an interesting piece to understand. And basically, I also believe that at an individual level, also apart from organization, we need to be aware about the cyber threats, because any person who is using any technology-enabled device, for example, mobile that we are using, have you ever thought of using virus protection software in our mobile? We are downloading so much of mobile bank payment apps in our mobile, and I think we have number of credit card or banking apps in our mobile. So I think we should have some sort of mobile protection software in our mobile also, because even from our more than laptop, we are using our mobile for all these jobs. And apart from that, few simple tips like changing passwords, uh, and changing mindset that this will not happen to me. In Facebook also, we see regularly people getting requests that our account is hacked, get information the account is hacked. So like this, we need to take few we need to be cyber aware about the possible threats. So I think Shyam, we can take the questions.
Yeah.
Just to let you, just picking up from what Dr. Agarwal said, are you aware that there are individual cyber liability policies also available in the market? Yes. Every time I take a session, I promise to myself that I will take the policy, and I have not taken it for the last 2 years. After taking maybe 30 cyber sessions, every time I promise myself that I should take. You can take for your entire family. Okay. Bajaj Allianz and HDFC Ergo both have got wonderful policy at a very minimal premium.
And this will cover all devices, or
all devices. This will cover all devices. That's the beauty of that.
And I will go for this policy very soon. So Shyam, you can take a few questions.
Yeah. So I think first Mr. Rajesh Zaveri has raised his hand. I would like to unmute him.
Mr. Shyam, I think your voice is not audible, and maybe.
Is it very good evening.
Yeah, now it is. Yeah.
Mr. Rajesh,
very good evening. Yeah, very good evening to all of you, and thank you very much, sir, for providing lot of insight with last 10 years. What type of cyber crime and situation has happened. Sir, wanted to understand, apart from this Air India incident, last 1.5 years, 2 years, what type of other cyber breach has happened? And because we are,
you're talking about India, India?
Yeah, only India, because whenever we try to talk to the people, they says it has not happened with us. These all are only the theoretical or the things happen on the media, but it has not really happened in our company. So just wanted to know, apart from Air India, because of course Air India being the PSU environment, but what about the other private company or something? Because we are not able to get those type of any data openly. So if
it is difficult. You're very right. It is very difficult to get the data of the Indian companies who have been hacked, whereas you get from across the world. I can give you few names which I remember. One is Big Basket. There was a hack of that. I don't have the full details about it. If I remember, it was that Unacademy. I think there's something called Unacademy. I think some training institute that got hacked. MobiKwik. I remember MobiKwik. Airtel also, I think, had some similar sort of situations. I don't have the full details for that. Yes, you are right. Domino's. It was Domino's, and there was, I think, one municipal corporation somewhere in Pune probably, which was also hacked. So these are some of the names which are coming in my mind. There are n number of cases in India which have happened. Manufacturing units, IT companies, insurance companies, TPAs, then health companies, pharma companies, they have been hacked. I don't remember all the names in India, but only thing is that they are not of high magnitude, not very big losses.
Okay.
As compared to what has happened across the globe.
In fact, most of them may not be insured also, since cyber liability has been of a very recent advent. So they may not be insured. Definitely. And many would not like to put it in public that they have been hacked if the incident is not very big.
Dr. Reddy's lab also, I think, was hacked, and they have got an insurance policy, big insurance policy. So they are fully secured. So
no, because we all feel last 14-15 months, work from home. So we thought maybe hundreds of cases maybe floating in the air. The way the hype is created across the globe, and as you correctly said, the number of cases has increased last from 2014 to 2021, 20 times. So we are, because as these type of things are not coming, no, sometimes it becomes, difficult, to, give them the proper solution to the, company. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Nice talking to you. Thank you.
I could see a very interesting question, really. Somebody asked about this marine exclusion in the marine. Can
I'll take questions one by one if it's okay. From starting, I'll see. Varsha ji has asked, is cyber liability insurance available as a retail product in the India market?
Yeah, I have already answered that. Yes, it is. It is very much there.
Yeah. So Gunjan ji
please take it.
Yeah. Gunjan ji has asked, for Colonial Pipeline, who paid the ransom amount, insurance company or the company itself?
Okay. See, how the claim process happens out here is that insurance company always reimburses. They are not going to pay the ransom to the extortionist. So the client, that is the insured, is going to first pay the ransom, and the same is going to be reimbursed by the insurance company.
Okay, perfect. Another question from Gunjanji: if supermarket owners file a lawsuit against Kessia for BI loss, is insurance company liable to pay for such losses?
Excellent question, and this is what I was talking about. This is what is cyber liability. Now, those 800 supermarkets, I mean, the probability of them having a cyber liability policy, and that too having a contingent liability cover for that, is, I will say, not even 1%. So where do they go? They are the ones who are going to file suit on Kessia for the cyber liability. That is the business of financial loss which they have faced. They are the ones who are going to file cyber liability suits on them. And that Kessia's insurance policy is going to pay. And if there is no limit left in the insurance policy, Kessia is going to pay.
Great. Thank you, sir. Ramakrishna ji asked, any institute teaching cyber security and insurance in India?
Any institute?
Teaching cyber security and insurance in India.
I think very soon we are also launching our course on cyber security.
I was about to say
maybe from Mr. Sagar itself.
So, of course, I am not a cyber security expert, but I have got a very preliminary knowledge on the cyber security, but I can definitely tell about the cyber risk and insurance.
Is there, Ravindran ji has asked, is there similar protection for maritime cyber protection?
Okay, maritime cyber protection, as of now, I can't think of a policy which can cover that. But if I may extend the knowledge of the cyber liability policy, what stops you in giving it to the, I mean, probably you are asking about a ship owner taking, or maybe a charter vessel owner taking the policy.
I'll unmute Ravindran ji if he can explain it. Ravindran ji, please.
Yes, good evening, sir. I'm Ravi from Malaysia.
Yeah, please.
It was a nice presentation. Yeah, you see, when you talk about the maritime industry, you're talking about the ships and also the ports. So you have sometimes the ports can also get hacked, because when you want to take out any containers, you want to take out any cargo from the port, a hacker might go in and probably duplicate the document, or probably might do some hacking there, and you can actually remove these items from the port. So is there any maritime policy where we can actually protect for those liabilities?
I don't see an issue issuing such a policy to the port particularly. The reason being that, as you have rightly said, there are exposures. But of course, if there are physical damages, that will not be covered. But if, yes, they are hacked and the data, see, one more very important thing which might come up, that the ship data, that can be disclosed to the darknet. And then people might come to know, let's say, I'm taking a very vague example, that let's say the pirates know that this particular ship is carrying so much of costly cargo that has got leaked. They can intercept that particular thing, which they would not have done possibly. It's a hypothetical situation. But yes, why not? You can give a policy. You can give a policy, but I have not heard of any such policy being given as of now. But definitely, if the product has to be tweaked. not the standard product. You have to build in exposures which are very, which are probably typical to a port that can be given.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
I think I got a question. You only asked about that exclusion, or somebody else asked that?
There's another question, I think, on the hull protection. Somebody have asked it, I think.
I'll just see. There is another question. What is the reason for using cyber exclusion clause under marine cargo hull policy? Any example with possibility of an impact on these lines due to cyber incident? This has been asked by Mr. Venkatesh.
Okay, very good question. I am a hacker. I hack the systems of the ship. My remote control is with me now. I can create an collision of two ships. As simple as that. So what is happening? It's a hull loss. It's a cargo loss triggered by a cyber attack. So which, just like I said about the property policy doesn't want to pay, the marine policy also doesn't want to pay for that, because it's a cyber exclusion, and there is a LMA exclusion, London market exclusion, which is put under all the policies for the cyber exclusion. Simply, this is an example, and I don't know whether, I think it has happened also. There is one case, if I am not remembering it exactly, that the hackers took control and the ships were made to collide from far off. So nobody wants to pay for those. So that's why they put a exclusion under the marine policies. But yes, what Mr. Ravindran was saying, that if we design a very specific policy, cyber policy for ports as well as the moving items like the ships, etc. Yes, you can. Possibly we can think of it.
Great, sir. So last question from Mr. Ayan Chattopadhyay. Can farming, spoofing, purchase, fraud, and spear phishing be covered under cyber liability? What is the reinsurance cover percentage in India? In addition to that,
what are the things you said?
The second part of the question is, what is the reinsurance cover percentage in India for cyber liability?
For this. So you're talking about, can you please, I think, unmute him?
I'll unmute him, just a second. I am Mr. Ayan. Sir, please go ahead with your question. I have unmuted you.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to ask that in cyber insurance, suppose I have an Indian client and he wants to go for total reinsurance cover, not for my Indian partner. So he wants to approach the reinsurance market for his company's cyber coverage. Can that be done in India?
But you don't, what you are trying to say, that you don't want to cede any part in India. You want to take it entirely from outside.
Right, sir.
Yeah. See, why is it required? Because as I told you, that the Indian policy is extremely good. The wordings are extremely good. Only thing what you can possibly do, that suppose if the limit is very, very high, let's say some company wants to take 1,000 crores of Indian rupees, which possibly will exceed the capacity of every insurance company. Right. So in that case, you can approach the reinsurance market to get the fact cover for that, with the whatever the fact percentage you want to do. So that is possible, but getting the entire policy from outside India, I don't think so is the right step to do, because we are possibly ignoring our GIC compulsory thing. Another part which you can do, I mean, you can design a policy in different manners. If it is a, let's say, 1,000 crores, which no Indian insurer has got a capacity, layer it out. Create layers, create a primary layer, create a second, first excess, create a second excess, and design the policy accordingly. You will be able to absorb the entire 1,000 crores. If after that, even after that, if it is not possible, then obviously facultative support will be required.
Right, sir. Thank you.
There's a very interesting comment. Fabulous, sir. Feeling like to underwrite couple of cyber liability policies from Bharat.
Yeah, please underwrite. Please underwrite. I think I will be very happy. I mean, more and more people should start underwriting cyber policies. In fact, I didn't include cyber liability underwriting in this session because the time was less. So cyber liability underwriting is also a very interesting thing on its own.
That's all from the chat box. If anyone has any more questions, they can raise their hand. I'll unmute them.
I think Chandan is there. Chandan has mentioned something about Willis having designed some maritime cyber policy. So I am yet to see that policy. I will have a look at it and definitely get prepared for the next one in that case.
So I request Dr. Rakesh to take over.
Any other questions?
No, I think we don't have any other questions. So we can close it for today. So thanks a lot, Mr. Sagar, for a very interesting session
Thank you very much.
with live examples. And I think the participants must have also got some credible insights about cybersecurity. And we will try to organize more such sessions in future. And we'll again invite Mr. Sagar for taking few of them. So thanks a lot, Mr. Sagar, and all participants who have joined and who stayed till so long. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Risk Management Association of India is proud to launch the first ever online certificate course on risk management. RMAI is an NGO engaged in promotion of risk management discipline in India and overseas countries for more than 28 years. In business, risk is inevitable, and in order to achieve success, people need to make smart risk decisions to improve the chance of reward. This course has been curated keeping in mind the increasing need of risk management practices in our dynamic business environment. The course will give you a detailed insight about the practical use of risk management, principles and practice. Besides our video lectures, you will also get access to additional reading resources, including latest report on risk management around the world. A brief overview of the course. Online e-learning modules spread over 8 weeks, 8 modules on risk management, quiz after each module to check understanding of the subject, live sessions by risk management experts on weekends, additional reading resources on each module, project on risk management, final exam by remote invigilation. The USP of the course is video lectures on each module, special crafted topics by experts to help in practical application in risk management. View the lectures at your convenient time 24/7. View recorded versions of live sessions. Attempt quiz in each module to check your level of understanding. Additional reading material on each topic with latest reports on risk management around the world. Get dual certification from Risk Management Association of India and Association of Internal Control Professionals, London. Highly subsidized course in comparison to similar international courses. Join the course today. For any query, please reach out to us on 907-3791-022 or 82320-83010 or email us at info@rmiindia.org or visit our website www.rmiindia.org.